So you are a lecturer in the computer science department at Berkeley.
right?
I imagine that you are aware that like computer science doesn't have the reputation of being like the department that activism springs from. Any ideas why?
There's a very common perception that computer science is just this objective thing where like there's a right answer and it's like it's all numbers. So you don't have to think critically about society, or you don't have to think about reading a book. You can just write the code, and if it does the right thing, then you're all good. And I think there's this very pervasive sense among people in computer science that what they're doing is just objectively good. All we have to do is just keep writing code, and it's always going to be good, and everyone's going to be happy, and I don't have to think critically about anything. And if I do think critically, it's always going to be in this very constrained way where we think about like something. We'll bring in some like case study if we have to talk about ethics. Like always think about copyright law, and it's just intentionally something that's very milk toast and very boring and very like textbook case study instead of something important like, hey, there's like a high tech genocide happening right now. Should we talk about that instead of like copyright law? The kind of thing that I think they bring in to muzzle actual discussion about
Right.
ethics in computer science. As to whether it's changing, I would say it absolutely is changing. So one of the first things that really opened my eyes is after I graduated, so I was no longer part of the TA union. I switched to being part of the lecturers union, but the TA union at large on like all the UC campuses went on a strike in 2022. This is UAW, and to my surprise, the CS department actually managed to mobilize a huge amount of CS and electrical engineering TAs to also join walkouts. And I think people started to become more aware that, like, hey, my labor is actually something that I can negotiate on. Like, I can actually negotiate for rights so that I'm not all overworked or so that our department isn't so underfunded. And I think people started to become more aware of how labor organizing worked and the fact that it could win things. And that I think was a very big inspiration to convince me that organizing in my workplace was actually something that could happen. But I think every small action helps, like having conversations helps. And also, just more broadly, going back to the topic of Israel Palestine, like I think people are starting to realize that this is a high tech genocide. And there are these organizations like No Tech for Apartheid and No Azure for Apartheid that are
Right.
scoring huge wins when it comes to exposing these tech companies like Google and Amazon and Microsoft for having billion-dollar contracts with the Israeli military for mass surveillance, for AI training, and for all these things that are